Hi, it's Mean Boy here, and this is something I kind of wanted to talk about because a friend of mine kind of brought up something very interesting that I kind of wanted to talk about. That, well, basically, it was sent to me by someone else, like sylz. I woke up, and there was this message by sylz that he sent in my Discord server, saying that Ball said something to him. And what was that thing he said? Well, what he said was, consistency is in your head. It's all in your head. And I was wanting to think about that, to think if what he says is truly, true. Because you know how I'm constantly ranting, all that. And I was thinking, well, I kind of want to think about this and think, is that truly true? Like, is that really true? Because I'm not gonna rant about something that I don't believe in, or I think is untrue, or I haven't thought of. Everything I have ever ranted about, I have thought about and tried to think about in depth. And this is something I like to do, especially like at night times or when I'm in the shower, stuff like that. I think about things and kind of rationalize it. And this right here was something I was going to think about and think, is this true? Well, is this statement accurate? I kind of want to go through each idea and kind of apply it to certain other things and think, well, is this truly, is consistency really just in your head? And I kind of want to debate about that. The first thing I want to do is kind of think about what is consistency and what do you do to get consistent? Because I don't know if consistency is in quotes now or not, and I want to figure that out, especially with this game. Because he may just be meaning this game in general, not just in general, like in real life, just this game. So, what is consistency in Geometry Dash, and what makes you consistent? Well, to get consistent at a level, you want to constantly practice it until you get good at it, until you're able to pull it off. And this requires a lot of time and effort depending on the difficulty of it. Once you're able to pull it off multiple times in a row, that's when you are called being, that's when you can say you are consistent at something. But the problem is that I don't know what. Because in definition, that is consistency. Is being able to do something multiple times in a row without failing, or at least doing it pretty well. But I think he's not being literal. At the same time, I think Foundmyball was probably thinking a little more than just like when you're already doing a level and put it down like this. Of course, Foundmyball knows the actual definition of consistency. He knows what it means, but what he probably means is once you have learned the level, he probably means being consistent is kind of an illusion, because if you're able to do something like in a level, you can do it now. You've learned it. But once you've learned it, you may still fail a lot, especially if you've been consistent before, and now the next day you're doing horribly. Is that truly a lack of consistency, or is that something else? Because there have been those days where I'm doing really well one day, and then the next day I can't go anywhere. What? Well, let's first kind of go into something I do know about the whole point of consistency. Basically, getting consistent in something is teaching your nerves to fire faster. Because when you learn something new, Your brain and all your muscles and everything are not used to it. So they're not going to be able to do it quickly. They're not going to be able to do it efficiently because it's something they have never tried before. But once they have tried it before, it's now memory. They can probably do it again, except a bit better. Getting that consistency is learning that. The more you fire those same nerves over and over again, the more quickly and efficiently the brain will do it. That's consistency in literal terms. That is what makes something consistent, is being able to pull that exact thing off. But why is it we fail sometimes? Is it a lack of consistency, or is it just our minds thinking we're inconsistent, making us do worse? That's the problem. That's where I'm kind of getting confused here. Because in literal terms, it's just you not doing right. But is it really something in the mind? Like, is it really truly in your head? Is it me thinking I'm failing, making me fail more? That's the big debate here, is I don't know if it... Well, let's think more into, like, I said many times before, why I avoid getting annoyed as best as I can when doing extreme demons like Black Blizzard and whatnot. Because when you rage, you do worse. And we've all probably had that experience. The more we rage, the more we fail. And it makes it harder for us, making us rage even more. It's a downward spiral, just going straight down the hill to the point where we eventually just rage quit. But with that logic being applied, does that affect being consistent, but in a much smaller sense, like psychological, like very slightly, to the point to where you do slightly worse, you just don't know it. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh man, I'm doing worse. Oh no, something bad's gonna happen. I'm gonna die far or something, and it just messes with you. But you don't really think it in the front of your mind, but it still distracts you without you really realizing it. Is that what's going on? But how does that apply to consistency being in your head, though? Because right now I'm debating what affects consistency, but I probably could debate that much faster than this, but... One thing about it, though, is that we're all human, right? We're all gonna make mistakes. And since we're also human, it takes us longer to learn things and get consistent at it, right? So, failing at levels is... Wait. I was about to make a point going kind of against it being in your head, but I just realized that kind of actually goes with... Like, what I'm getting at is, like, if you're consistent at something, you've learned it, right? But we're all human, because we can still make mistakes, and our brains can sometimes fire slowly, or something like that, because when you're doing something like Black Blizzard, you can make a mistake somewhere, because of how demanding the things are, the timings are. The brain can be only so efficient. We're all human, we can always make mistakes. That's why some people can spend like 200,000 attempts into a level if they wanted and still fail. Because yeah, they're extremely consistent, but the problem is that we're all human, and that's what kills us. So, is it a matter of lack of consistency, or just us being human? Because that's the biggest problem here, and that might be it. When we're consistent at something, we're expecting to do it right every time. That's just how the brain works, right? The brain likes patterns. It loves it. When there is a pattern, it wants to stick with it. And when the brain is shown a pattern so many times, and it works like almost if not every time, the brain will expect that exact same outcome every time. It's just how the brain likes to put everything together in memory. But when it doesn't work like that, it gets annoyed. And it kind of like, okay, well, this didn't work, and it drastically looks for a different alternative then, since the brain originally thought this was a good route. Because the brain originally thought, wow, this route is unbeatable, this cannot fail, and then it does fail. And then it'll try and think of a different route. Okay, well, this one just failed, so maybe I can try this one. Because the human brain is great, it's amazing, but it isn't perfect. And that might be the problem. The problem may not be consistency, it may just be emotion. The fact that we're human and all that. It might just be psychological. It's not a matter of consistency that might lead us to fail on some days. It may just be mood and everything, and that does make sense. Because I can even relate. There's been times where I've had a really bad day, right? And in those bad days, I'm doing horribly. I'm not doing very good. That might be the problem. That might be the brain being distracted by other things and other emotions, which may slow down the firing of certain nerves. It's just the brain's fault. It's not like consistency or anything like that. It's just psychological problems because the brain isn't perfect. And that might be what Ball is getting at. It's a matter of keeping your mood great. The happier you are, the better you'll do. Staying optimistic will allow you to do well all the time. But if you aren't optimistic, you'll do worse because your brain is messing up. It messes with your quote-unquote consistency. So, then yeah, that does make sense. And yes, in a non-literal sense, consistency is just in your head. Because us failing, despite us being consistent in something, isn't a lack of consistency. It's just the fact that we're human and our brains are not perfect. It's imperfect. Every human's imperfect. The brain may be great. Consistency may be strong at times. We can do whatever we want. We can play at level as much as we want. But since we're all human and when we're all imperfect, there's bound to be a time where we fail at one point. It's not a lack of consistency. It's just us being human. So yeah, in that case, in a non-literal sense, I'd say yes. Consistency is just in your head. So, GG, Foundmyball, and sylz, great. You get a gold star. Thanks for giving me something to think about. Actually, I'm pretty thankful. I like talking about this stuff. You kind of gave me this chance to do my first little debate video thing. This is my hand. Thanks.